Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Into webinar. My name is Tanya Jain. I'm the Senior Marketing Executive at Into, and I will be your host during this webinar. Our topic for today is Microsoft Power Platform, how it can revamp your digital landscape and accelerate your sustainability journey. We have with us Mr. Ashay Tattu from Into. He is the cloud solution architect and an evangelist of emerging cloud technologies. Ashay will lead our agenda for today, where we will be able to understand how Microsoft Power Platform can be the next big step for businesses to upgrade their day to day operations while being a part of the sustainability journey. So, following the presentation, we will discuss few case studies to understand how Power Platform has helped various businesses in their journey so far. And then we will have a quick demo on the Power Platform solution. So by the end of this demo, we would be happy to answer all your queries. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat box, and we will make sure that we view and answer them. So starting with the introduction, I would like to cover a brief introduction who we are as an organization and how we can add value to your business. So Into is a global full service cloud managed service provider for Microsoft Dynamics 365 business applications, Azure, and modern workplace. We are a 100% owned entity of RIB Schneider Group. We are a technology company having a global presence as a gold Microsoft partner. And we have served over more than 1,000 customers in 40 plus countries and have a strong team of more than 400 people across the globe. We recently secured the solution partner status across 6 Microsoft workloads, which would be business applications, data and AI, digital and app innovation, infrastructure, modern workplace, and security. So talking about the focus industries, our focus industries are distribution, FMCG, manufacturing, retail, and real estate. We have, as we have mentioned, we have more than 1,000 customers. So we have an extensive customer experience in these industries as well as the other industries. And we also offer industry specific solutions. Now, with further ado, let's start with the main presentation. Ashay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tanya. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashay. As Tanya introduced me, I am a cloud solutions architect for the emerging technologies division here in Into. My focus is to work on all the newer technologies like Power Platform, Azure, etc. So today's focus will be on the Power Platform and the sustainability solutions that Microsoft has created. So let me start off by talking about your current workforce and the workforce as it's going to be in the next 10 to 15 years. Right now, we have three major generations that are working in the current workforce. You have the Generation X, which is presently occupying the highest echelons of industry, the C class. You have the millennials who make up the bulk of the workforce and will cover about 75% in a couple of years. And then you have the newer generation, the Gen Z, which is just about entering the workspace maybe 1 or 2 years ago and is just going to keep growing in the next 10 to 15 years. This is the workspace and the workforce for whom we need to design the workplace of the future. So, what do we know about these generations? Well, these are all generations that have seen a lot of technological innovations in their lifespan. Gen X saw the rise of personal computers. Millennials saw the rise of the internet and the information age. And Gen Z are the first generation that have actually grown up with the internet. They had the internet since their birth. And they have smartphones as powerful as most PCs in their pockets, which they carry on every day. Now, what this has led to is a very fast pace of life in the people and the workers. They expect a much faster response in their interactions with businesses and their interaction with their employers. And they have also come to use a touch interface like a tablet or a phone as being more comfortable for them than a traditional keyboard and mouse. Now, with all of these things in mind, we see that low-code technologies like Power Platform would be a great add-on for how you can increase productivity of all your workers. A quick introduction on the Power Platform. It's a low-code, no-code framework that has been created by Microsoft. It consists of three major operands, which is the Microsoft Power Apps, which as the front-end app building layer, the Power Automate, which is the logic handler and can do connections between various software, between various systems that you may have, and Power BI, which is usually for the visualizations and graphics. I'm sure most of you have actually know about Power BI because it has existed in the market for a very long time. Talking about the connectors, since this is a low-code platform, the expectation is that you should be able to connect to both to and from, to get data and to push data into a variety of software. So Power Platform comes with over 300 built-in connectors, and you can see a bunch of them kind of just listed out over here. And this number, by the way, keeps growing day to day. You have MailChimp for mail integrations. You have Dynamics Stack, which is Microsoft's own ERPs. You have SQL Server if you want to do databases. But outside of Dynamics, you have Salesforce, you have AWS, you have Oracle EBS. There are connectors to almost everything that you can think of. And if something is not available, you're all allowed to create your own custom connectors. Again, very low code. Anyone in IT can do it. Or if your software is capable of handling REST APIs, they can even take up REST API calls. And to top it all, if you have, let's say, a very niche use case of a legacy system which works only on a particular hardware or particular machine that's sitting somewhere, then you also have Desktop Automate, which allows you to emulate a keyboard and mouse, log into a particular machine, and basically use that. We've had a use case for a government application where that particular GIS system made by the government was only working on Windows XP from like ages ago, and it would only work on a particular physical device, physical computer that they had. So we were able to still automate things around that by using the Power Automate desktop. I'll start off with a few case studies and then continue discussing more about the workforce. So here's one case study from Microsoft itself. This is a company called Ardent Mills. It's a flour milling and ingredients company based out of the US, but it's very large. So I think one of the largest flour milling companies in the world. They have a variety of plants that are manufacturing wheat, corn, a whole bunch of other things across the US. And they were facing a problem in that the quality reports that would be submitted, and they would have to be aggregated by the quality data analyst. These quality reports would come from each of their plant managers and plant operations executives, but they were always sent out kind of without any consistency. Some would send them out every day, some would send them out once in a week, and there would be data missing. The data formats that they were sent would be completely different. So the quality data analyst, a person called Deborah, who was sitting in Ardent Mills' headquarters, was having to spend maybe a day or 2 days at the end of each week, collating all the data, emailing everyone, if there's missing data, and then building out the reports. Now, to solve this issue, Deborah, who's a Gen Z, had attended on the sideline. She had attended a few Microsoft seminars on Power Platform, and she thought, why not try to use this to streamline the whole process, to make the reporting easier, and to give more visibility of all the data across the company. So in a matter of about 3 weeks, she was able to build an app, which they call the Crosscheck app. And basically, instead of emailing out all the information as physical emails or as Excel files or PDFs, whatever, the app had a form where the quality managers would fill in all the data and would submit it. And the app would also have a feature for reminder if in case they haven't submitted their data by the end of the day or the end of 2 days. An email would be sent out to ensure that the quality managers fill in the data and send it in. That way, there was no more any delay in actually aggregating the data because the data was standardized. no missing data because the form had specifications on what is the mandatory data, what is required, what is not required. And the reporting was basically available out of the box. You could just open up the reporting area and based in Power BI, and you could see the reports at any point. There was no real need for data aggregation. And this data was obviously available to the plant managers as well. They could see their quality checks as they are coming in, as they get submitted in real time. They get to see their data and their quality dashboards evolve. Another challenge that comes with the modern workspace is the concept of remote and hybrid work. So you have this concept when the COVID came in that people had to work remotely. And even now in IT and in various other industries, you're seeing that employees are looking more and more to hybrid work because it aligns well with their family experiences. It reduces the cost on the companies for infrastructure and physical space. And it's a more cohesive atmosphere. So it seems that hybrid work has outlasted the pandemic and probably has become a mainstay. A lot of companies are coming back into work, but are still having to support at least a fraction of their employees working partially from home or partially from the office, or maybe even from other countries altogether, if you've outsourced your IT teams or other administration departments. So some challenges that came out with this. One company, a semi-government company that we have worked with here in Dubai, they have an HR department. And as with most companies in this region, the HR department has to provide letters like NOCs, employee certificates, salary certificates, bank transfer letters, NOCs for driving licenses, visas, etc. So this company had previously, because everyone was working from the office, they had a very simple process. An employee would either write an email or walk into the HR and tell them that they want an employment certificate or a bank transfer certificate. And the HR would make a note of it, and then maybe at the end of the day or at the end of the week, they would fill it up in Word and they would send it out to the employee, print it out, sign and stamp it, and either physically deliver it or kind of scan it and give it out as PDF. Now, the biggest issue that happened when COVID hit was everyone was offsite. Everyone was working from home, including the HR. And the HR didn't have as much resources to print out all the letters and everything else. Plus, it became a lot of coordination because all these employees, this was almost a 1,000 or 1,500 employee company. So all those emails coming in one shot, a lot of people having to travel whenever the countries opened up. So a lot of issues that came up in coordination. HR started being bogged down by these requests. They were having a lot of mistakes in some cases because they were overworked. So we stepped in and we provided them a solution based on Power Automate to kind of automate this entire process. They had the Dynamics 365 Finance ERP. So a small form was built in there where the employee would submit the request with basically stating what kind of letter that they want. Do they want an NOC or a salary certificate, etc. And it would go through a small workflow within the ERP, approving it. And once it gets approved, everything shifts into Power Automate. So Power Automate would receive this request. The Word templates that they were previously filling in manually, these were loaded onto SharePoint. And the Power Automate would find the correct Word template for that particular letter request. It would fetch the employee's data from the ERP and push it into that letter template, kind of like a mail merge concept. And it would convert that that Word template, filled Word template into PDF, and would actually attach that PDF back into the ERP and email it out to the employee immediately. So this way, and the client also wanted to store it in SharePoint simultaneously for some kind of audit trail purposes. So yeah, that's also possible. So all of these actions were completely automated. There was no user intervention required, and they just added a note at the bottom saying that this is an automatically generated document, does not require signature or stamp. And the process that would usually have the users and the employees wait maybe a few days to a week or so to receive their letters. Now, the moment their request is approved in the ERP, within 2 minutes, they get it in their inbox. No user intervention, no involvement of the HR to do anything manually, and completely automated. So this way we were able to actually free up, I think, 4 to 5 days worth of the HR time per month by implementing this process. And this is just one small example of how anyone with an HR department can use Power Platform. This leads to the concept that low code, and there have been a lot of studies done by, I'm showing here from Gartner and from McKinsey and Company, where low code technologies like the Power Platform are being adopted more and more across the world. So you can see that the overall adoption, I will just highlight it here. You can see that the overall adoption is increasing over the last 3 years, and it's just poised to explode in the next couple of years because you have employees who have extreme technological knowledge. They have grown up with these, and they can relate to how they can build out these concepts. The letter requesting that I created, or the articles thing, these are all requests that came in from the employees. They didn't come from the IT team. They didn't come in from the traditional method. These are employees who know how automation works. They understand that pace of life has increased, and they don't want to spend their time doing the repetitive tasks. So exposing a low code technology like this would really help the employees build out their own digitization mechanisms to increase their productivities, their team's productivities. The letter request concept, by the way, took us maybe 2 weeks to build and about 1 week to kind of stabilize with a few changes in the letter formats and a few processes. That's about it. In 3 weeks, we were fully live. Another digitization concept that we had was for a furniture retailer here in UAE and KSA. They, like most brick and mortar stores, they have customers who walk into their store and order a few things. But since it's a furniture retailer, they arrange for deliveries. And originally, they had a paper form where the customer would actually write in their location, their phone number, etc. And you had all the same issues, of handwriting recognition. Sometimes the customer didn't fill in the correct information, or the landmarks were not recognizable, the phone numbers were not completely understandable, etc. So in about 1 week, we were able to build out a simple app for them, which their store users would carry on a tablet. They just carry on a tablet in the store. And instead of having a paper form, the customers would just type in this information. There was also a map component in there where the users could, so the customers could actually pin their location. They could find the geolocation, they could scroll the map and, figure out where their home is and actually just pin that location. So now you have an exact location for the delivery driver. And the same app was being used, the data from this delivery tracking application was being passed on to the delivery driver. So the customer capture app, and there was a equivalent delivery tracking app where the delivery drivers would pick up this data and they would be able to navigate to the location. If they wanted to contact the client, the phone number was there, just click on it and it would engage the phone app for them to be able to call the users. So again, about 1 week and we were done with this. Very quick, very easy. I'll show you a quick demo of another use case, which I actually use on a day-to-day basis. So along with the emerging technologies, there is an IP that has been built by my company. And one of the issues that was there is whenever we have to release a new build for each client, the users would email me and my team about asking for a new package. So instead of having it as an email coming in, and maybe sometimes the emails delayed, some people are on leave, so we miss out on those emails. I built a small app. So I'll just show that to you. Give me a second to share my screen from my phone. Okay, 1 second. And there we go. So here's a small app that I built where you can actually request for a new build. And I'll just type in test build. And let's say it's for alpha. Oh. And I'm going to save it. It's going to figure out who all has to be notified when the build is completed. And I'm going to click on submit. And this is going to submit it. And I'm going to shift to the other side where I'm going to show you the flows and the concept that runs in this. I'm going to share back to my screen. So go here into the solution. So, second, I need to share my screen from my desktop. So what happens is when the build request is submitted, there is a small data table that exists inside Dataverse. 1 second, guys. Sorry about that all. Somebody just showed up at my door unexpectedly. So resuming from where we stopped, whenever a build is requested, you have a Dataverse, which is a data environment available with the Power Platform where you can store your data. So a quick record got created here. And based on that, you can have these low code flows that start running. So I'll just go to the flows area. Yeah. And this flow was triggered. You can see it was just triggered 3 minutes ago or 2 minutes ago when I started this whole thing. And it will just run through all the steps that are required. And as you can see, this is why I wanted to show this demo as well. It's all a visual designer. There's no coding. There's no physical, writing of code. Anyone with experience or anyone who can understand the logic of what you want to do will be able to do it. It looks like a lot of steps, but it's all logically valid. Most of these steps are actually just defining various variables in there. And at the end of this, whenever the build is validated, it will go and actually start a DevOps build. So anyone in here who has technology experience would know that you have CI/CD, you have DevOps pipeline. So even this is not just for low code for your business users. Even your IT teams can use this, like I am, to automate some of their processes. If you want to turn on a VM, you want to turn on or turn off VMs at various times or based on various rules, or you want to create a small app where users can request for turning on and off VMs or starting CI/CD builds, etc. All of that is possible. So when it comes here, I'll just refresh this. And you can see a build was started 4 minutes ago and is in progress. And equivalent to this, an email has come to me stating that the build has started. Whenever the build is completed, it'll actually shoot out an email to me saying that the build is completed. So this is a quick flavor on how you can use the Power Platform and its various elements. You're seeing the Power Apps, which was used to request data, the Dataverse, which is being used to store the data, so you don't need an external. You can use, for example, SQL Server or your ERP, anything that you have to store your data. But if you don't have it, if you don't need a specific different use case or a different storage space, there's a small storage space that comes with data with the Power Platform called the Dataverse, where you can store this. So any small use business use cases that you're building for, you can store the data right there. So you have that, and you have the Power Automate, which is using all these various connectors to SharePoint and to the Dataverse, to, in my case, the DevOps pipelines to start the builds. In the other use cases that I showed you with the FinOps ERP or SharePoint to store the data. And all of these things can, fluidly work with each other to generate emails, to take actions, to, create reminders, to maybe send out reports when they are ready. It's a very elegant solution in that way. Moving back to the presentation. Just a moment, loading. Okay. So that's basically what we wanted to convey, that the Power Platform has a very low barrier of entry. You don't need to have people who are traditional developers, who are traditional coders, or anyone from that industry to pick it up. Anyone who is interested in technology, anyone who is interested in increasing their productivity can easily pick it up and can implement this. But another thing to convey is also all the use cases we've shown till now are fairly small internal use cases. If you ever want to build a much larger solution, that's possible as well. We've seen a few cases where people have built, or other companies have built, entire IPs on top of it. There are HR systems that have been built on top of it, payroll systems that have been built on top of it. And one of those examples is one built by Microsoft itself. It's called the Microsoft Sustainability Manager, which is for the sustainability space. So as you all know, that sustainability is a concept that is gaining a lot of traction in industry, and it already has a lot of importance in US and UK and a lot of European regions, but it's gaining a lot of traction here in the GCC as well, and a lot of demand on companies to be providing their emissions dashboards, to provide their stage 1 to 3 goals and their compliance with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, etc. And the landscape in all of this reporting is very complex. You have a lot of regions, a lot of countries, and a lot of regulations that you need to comply with. So in order to kind of cut across all of this, Microsoft created this proposal. So Microsoft created this vertical specific app, which is built on top of Power Platform, called the Sustainability Manager. And its basic use is to unify how the data is going to get pulled in. So rather than you having to worry as companies about how much data, from where to get it, how will you build those first 10 reports to be able to show to your management that what are your emissions right now, or to show to even auditors or government agencies as to what your current emissions are, rather than working out every company having to work that out from scratch. There's a baseline product, that vertical specific, which has been created on this, which will expose a standard set of data, as in you put in your data in those formats, and the reports will be turnkey. You have these Power BI reports that are available right out of the box. So we're actually working on the pilot of this with one of the largest construction companies here in UAE. They are in charge of the world's largest building. So I'm sure people can understand who we're working with, although I'm not allowed to name them directly. We are currently working on getting their stage 1 and 2 and 3 emission standards in. So this is just a sample dashboard that came out within about 5 minutes, because there is a direct integration of the data because of all these connectors available. You can pull the data from the Azure data center immediately. So what this company is using as from their Azure usage perspective, from their data center perspective, that data was a direct connection, and we were able to pull that data in about 5 minutes of just setting up the security policies and the connections to the Sustainability Manager. And we already have some of the data from the buildings and the malls that they operate. And we're just transforming that and setting up the connection so that that data will also flow in using the same connectors and Power Automate flows that you saw into sustainability manager, which operates on this same concept. And their stage 1, 2, and 3 uh, dashboards will be live in minutes. But since this is all built on top of Power Platform, you're allowed to customize it. If you want to build a few reports on your own, you want to add a few data, change some data, or you want to add some data fields specific to your companies or your region's reporting purposes, you can do that again with minimal coding experience, or basically no coding experience. Your sustainability managers or compliance teams, internal compliance teams, can build out most of these things on their own with just minimal support, let's say, from your IT if required. And that's where we are right now with this company. We are at Horizon 1. We are currently at the informative stage where we are just getting to know their data, figuring out what their goals should be. But maybe in a few months, we're looking to go to the predictive. I think that's been planned for about middle of the year. And then to the transformative stage where they can actually change parts of their business to be more compliant and save money, be more compliant with regulatory authorities, and obviously with environmental goals. Yeah, that's actually the core pitch from our side. And I would like to open up the floor now for any questions that you may have. I have a question here from Mr. Manmohan Singh. Do you advise using some of the existing creations as templates that can be used by other clients, or build again? So there are actually a few templates for both Power Automate and for Power Apps that are available out of the box in Power Platform. It'll just take me a little bit too long from the perspective of this presentation to switch to that screen and show you, but I can maybe provide some documentation at the end of this meeting, in this meeting chat, and I'll pass it on through Samyadeep and on to you guys. But yes, there are some templates that are available out of the box. You will find that these are templates not only created by Microsoft, but you can submit them as well. As in, there are a lot of users and community-driven templates that come in. So if you have, or if somebody else in the industry has built something of that nature, those you can use. But you can also always extend that. If it doesn't match, let's say 100%, it's only a 70% match, make whatever changes you feel like, because the code is all available directly. Yes, you can get backups for it. There's the question which asks when we create a template, can we get a backup? So actually the screen that I had landed up in when I was showing you the flows, I was taking a backup of my entire solution. So you can have full backups of your Power Platform solutions. With Power Apps, how can you help decide on the right apps to build for the organization? Will the decision be of the IT head or of the department head? That is an interesting question. So usually what we have seen is, in most cases, the right app or the concept flows usually from the business users. Because this is a low code concept, it starts very much from the business users who want to build something quickly. You might have previously, this was the use case, let's say 10, 15 years ago, in the case of reporting, where users would just build out a few reports in Excel. And then when they mature on that concept, they understand what they want, and they will approach the IT team. Okay, I want this as a report in Power BI. I want this as a report in Tableau, or whatever the reporting tools you may be using. It's similar over here. The expectation is you can have your business team start building out small apps or small flows on their own. And then if it becomes a larger concept, if it starts becoming something that's going to be used by multiple users or going to be used by multiple teams across various geographies, your IT team can have that oversight. But that's not to say IT has no oversight even during the small builds. There is an entire admin center where you can have governance policies and data loss prevention policies, so that you can control, if you have strict DLP policies, you can control what connections are allowed, what are not allowed, what internal, external concepts are allowed, and you have full oversight on, let's say, what flows are running, where the data is going, how it's flowing, etc. Okay, I see something from Mr. Kamran Ali Khan. In flows rejection, inflows, rejections, and approval process. I'm assuming this is talking about an approval process. Yes, you can build approval processes. There are a few approval connectors available out of the box, but we have also for a particular client, and we're in the process of doing this with a few other clients, built an entire approval system because the approval connector is just a simple one. You can specify in that connector who you want to approve, who do you want to approve this particular request. Maybe it could be one user or three users. You can specify the policy, first user to approves the whole request, or it has to be a majority, or all of them have to approve, etc. But if you want to expand that to a more professional thing within your company, your IT teams can have a handover on how Power Platform works, and you can build out full solutions on internal approvals. And these could be cross-system as well. As I said, connectors exist for all systems. So let's say you want a common approval process. You have data in Salesforce, you have something in Oracle, you also have, let's say, a dynamic CRM working. And all of these things have a variety of users, but you don't want the approvals. Each system has its own approval concept. You don't want it that way. You want a unified approval system. So you can build it out in Power Platform if you want to. You mentioned about the automation of system admin activities. Are there templates readily available for these things, or do we need to create? As I said, there are a few templates available for these things, for connecting to DevOps, I think for virtual machine turn on off, and a few related to, I think, SQL automation activities, similar to what Azure SQL Agent can do. But if you want to do them through Power Automate because you want to integrate to an app, or you want to do on request kind of thing, there are a few templates available. You can if none are available, or if they don't match what you want, it's fairly easy. Sorry, it's fairly easy to build it out on your own. Not a problem. What about load? Can Power Apps scale up? Any restriction or advice on the rollout of app to the masses? So there are a few restrictions because the licensing, which is something that I haven't, and somebody else right after this question has asked, what about pricing and deployment? So these two questions will go a little bit hand in hand. The pricing for Power Apps goes in a couple of flavors. You have a lot of Power App activities that are available, or Power App licenses, or things that are available directly when you take the Microsoft E3 and E5 Microsoft 365 licenses. You also get a few allowances or capacities that are available to you if you take other Microsoft products like the Dynamics CRM or like finance operations. But you can obviously buy the licenses and concepts on your own as well as independent usage if you don't have anything, or if you want to go beyond what is included in your pack till now. So Power Apps standalone is about $5 per user per app per month. And Power Automate is the same, I believe. But you also have pay-as-you-go plans, which are much cheaper. So if you don't want to use these as a static, one user per month, and you're assigning them to 5 users, those could be, let's say, kept for the admin users or the users who are going to use it 50 times a month or 500 times a month, because it's their bread and butter, and you want to have just some additional capacity, which is for pay-as-you-go. You can link it to an Azure subscription and have it go. I'll send out links at the end of this meeting via the Microsoft package. This entire deck will be dispersed. The recording will also be dispersed to you guys. Along with that, I'll send out the pricing for this as well. Now coming to the scaling part, there are a few restrictions because this is static pricing. Unlike the Azure components, which some of you might be aware of, Azure scales up infinitely, but then you will be having to pay to that level. How much ever you use, that's how much you pay. Since this is static pricing, there are certain limits. None of them I have seen is going to impact any of your normal business use scenarios. But the point to keep in mind is, do not try to use this for data integration. So it may seem tempting to use this to, let's say, integrate one ERP to another ERP from 2 different regions. And if your use case is small, let's say you have a sales order that gets created here, and so on that basis, you want to send an email to one of the case agents or the sales agents in another region and tell them to, or have that record created in another ERP. If you're doing this a few times a month or a few times a day, you should be fine. But for any kind of large scale data integration, this is not the option because that's not its purpose. It can on the sidelines deal with it, but it's not really the main purpose of the process. The process is more for productivity increases and for these things. There are more, Azure, there are certain Azure components, which some of you might be aware of, like Azure Logic Apps or Azure Functions, which would be better suited for a full data integration side. So keeping that in mind, there are certain limits. The documentation on the pricing that I will give will also have links to the limits, which you can read up on, but none of those are actually going to impact your most of the use cases. As I said, Ardent Mills as an example, the case study that I gave you, they have about 50 plants across the US region. And I think they have about 4,000 records that are being submitted on a day-to-day basis. Now with the new app coming in, there's data exchange between the headquarters and the various plant operations, and 4 to 5,000. And they don't face any issues. And we've done similar things for the approvals thing that I told you. We're in the process of implementing for a Netherlands-based company, but they are an MNC. They have operations across 35 different countries. And they also have about 5 to 6,000 approval requests and actions happening every day. And there's no scaling issue or no issue on that front. So you're very much fine on there. Just don't try to use it for a very large scale data integration, even though it may be tempting. What is the DB used to store the data and any limitation on the same? So the limits that I will send you will have this. The database in question is called Dataverse. It was previously called the Common Data Service. It's built on top of the Azure Data Lakes, although you don't have direct access to it like you would in data lakes. The capacity limit as of when you buy a environment is 1 GB, and for every user that you add on top of it, it's 125 MB. There's a bit of scaling that is available, again, as I said, based on your capacities available from any other Microsoft products that you have. You may already get some extra capacity on there. And I think you can add up to, you can keep adding 1 more GB, 2 more GB, etc. But this is also 1 GB just for the record storage. There's a separate 10 GB that is available. I think 10 GB. Don't quote me on that. I'll send you the link on this. But there's a 10 GB limit that is available for document storage. So if you're looking at specifically documents or file storage, that is not counted within this 1 GB. That's counted separately, and it has its own limits on there. The 1 GB is mostly for data records, etc., which in most cases is more than sufficient. And if you do environment separation, let's say you have a development environment or a testing environment that is separate from your production, then usually you wouldn't even have your development data or testing that's going on in here. So 1 GB is something that, the base limit I've never exceeded in any of my clients as of right now. And as I said, in most cases, you're using this for local business process storage. Anything major, if you're connecting to an ERP or you're connecting to a CRM system or an actual database for some data warehousing or whatever else, you would have those connections available. So you can have data being pushed there, and you can expunge it or archive it out from the Dataverse as required. Are the various integrations offered with Power Virtual Agents related to work processes to ensure the outcomes of the conversations? Yes. One topic that I forgot to mention in this given time, I didn't choose to mention it. Another product that's available in the Power Apps framework is the Power is Power Virtual Agents. It's a low-code chatbot builder, which you can use to quickly create conversational or natural conversation style chatbots. Again, unlike traditional chatbots, which might require you to write code in .NET or Python and have it connect to a variety of Azure components, you don't have to do any of that over here. It's all front-end based. It's all in the browser, and you can quickly create it. And the virtual agents do have integration with Power Automate. So if anything, the virtual agents inbuilt logic handler has certain capabilities. But if you need to do anything more than that, or if you need to fetch data, let's say based on what the user has requested, let's say the user has requested, I want to know my leave balance, and your leave balance is sitting in your ERP, obviously. So if you detect those kinds of requests and we need to fetch data, you can connect the virtual agent within the virtual agent designer. You can call Power Automate, which can then go and connect to your ERP, fetch whatever data is needed, pass it back to the virtual agent in the format expected that you want to reply to the client in, the user in, and have it sent out. So you have direct connections available between virtual agents and Power Automate as well. Then I have another question for a manufacturing company which is using Oracle E-Business Suite. Currently, we do not use any analytics. So which area is best to start analytics, and what is the best practices? This is a much larger conversation, Mr. Abdulazim. Since you're not using analytics. So we are from the Microsoft stack, so we will push for Power BI and using Power BI as a analytics engine. There, for data warehousing, and as I said, Power BI can itself directly connect to Oracle Business Suite or to any SQL data sources if you have it or if you have exposed it. It can also connect to OData and a whole bunch of other things, same like Power Automate can. But with analytics, you can have a variety of other questions as well, as to if you have only Oracle or you have other systems, and if you want to unify the data in a data warehouse, are you going to do that within Oracle? Usually not recommended, because ERP systems should continue to be for the ERP, be for day-to-day task management, data management, and data ingestion, and for processes basically. Data warehousing should usually be outside. So that could be a much larger conversation. Power BI is more than capable of handling most of these things, but you can connect with us. I'll be posting my contact information in a bit in the next slide, and get be made available through the end of presentation data that's sent out to you. So you can please reach out to us, and we can have a much larger conversation on the data warehousing and your analytics journey. Then I have a question from Mr. Harris, which says, for real estate company, what is the use of this app on approval process? As I said, I'm not sure if you were there in the earlier conversation or the earlier part of the Q&A. You can have entire approval processes that are built out over here. So if you have concepts like a sales quote is being sent out and you want an approval on that sales quote because the sales agent is giving you is offering a lesser price or a lesser profit margin than is expected, or you have some doubts about that customer, or you want to do something like the customer submitted some documents and you want to validate those documents. So there are certain even built-in AI elements. So if you want to train it out and you've asked the customer to submit their Emirates ID, their visa, their passport, and some other things. So you want to validate that each of those documents that the customer has actually, the files that the customer has actually provided, is actually what it says, and you're able to parse it. Like, the image is clear enough that you can parse it. You have certain AI builder and AI elements. You can use them to parse this data and validate whether it's working, it's okay or not. If it's okay, you can directly send it to the manager for approval and skip a step or two. If, let's say, a few elements are not being passed, you can either reject the request, send it back to the client saying that, hey, I don't think you've put a clear enough image, or this image is not of an Emirates ID. Please change it to be better. Or you can send it to somebody in your team if it's partially successful, to fill in whatever things it's not able to manage. If the OCR is not perfect or the clarity is not clear enough. And it's an AI element. It's a form recognizer AI element. So you can train it and you can make it better over time as well. So the more you train it, the more better it becomes. And you can have a variety of these approvals that you can go through. And that's very much up to how you want to do it, whether it's an internal approval, whether it's a request that your customer has put in. Let's say he's created some data as a reply to a case for asking for documents or whatever else, and you want it to react on that basis. So you can have a whole bunch of approval concepts that you can build with. Mr. Asraf asks, can we build very advanced websites with Power Pages, like proper e-commerce for a website for retail? I have seen this request come in. I can't comment on this at the moment because it very much depends on the concept that you're looking at. There is a lot of advanced configurations that you can do. And as I indicated, that it's a low-code platform, Power Pages, Power Platform, all of this, but it is not limited to just business users. If you are a pro coder, you have a full IT team, and you have a full software development team, or you're willing to invest on that, you can expand these capabilities 10 times, 15 times. You can involve a few Azure elements. If your capacities are not being met, you can involve a few code elements like Azure Functions or some .NET DLLs, JavaScript, etc., to really expand those capabilities. It's not required for most use cases, but if you need to, you can. And we can have a much larger conversation on this as well, whether it can actually handle a full e-commerce. There are integrations available or possible for payment gateways, etc., which would be required for e-commerce. But it would depend on the scale, because the pricing, as I said, is used for a particular thing. So if even for Power Pages, which are external facing, if the pricing works out for you, because you will be charged per user visit to that Power Page, or if it's an internal app or whatever else, you'd be charged based on number of users using it. So if the pricing works out for you, you can build it up. It's not really a limitation on that front. Can I use third-party databases like Oracle to store data? Yes, you can, absolutely. You can use SQL, you can use data lakes, you can use Oracle. I have even seen AWS Redshift being used for it. Is really not a problem. No real limitation. If you have a connector, you can do it. If the database is hosted on somewhere else and you have an SQL string, or you have any other methodology to be able to communicate to the database, a simple API will also work on the OData connection. Anything, if you have a way to connect to that database, usually you'll find for most common databases, connectors are already available. Common in the sense, even if they're application specific, connectors will be available. And anything for which connectors are not available, there are some standardized concepts like REST APIs, like OData, like a whole bunch of things that you can use to connect to it and store data in there. Not a problem. Can you specify how Microsoft Power Platform can sustain in future over the competitors? That is a very large conversation. I don't think I am best placed at this point to answer that, because it's low code is an evolving space. There are competitors to Power Platform. You will have seen Nintex, you will have seen Zoho Creator, and a whole bunch of other things that have come in, and they have their own capabilities, they have their own limitations. With Microsoft, what you see is this is Microsoft's key push all the way up from Satya Nadella, I mean, the CEO level, that they are focusing on creating everything on Power Platform. As an example, the key Dynamics elements, which are the CRM, the Dynamics 365 FinOps ERP, and Business Central. These three are three disparate products in Microsoft's business applications landscape, but I've been part of the insider application connections because we are partners. We are inside partners as well as Microsoft. So one of the things that we have learned is that Microsoft has already taken a lot of strides on unifying these three different ERP and CRM elements on top of Power Platform. So as an example, CRM, Dynamics CRM, is completely built on top of Power Platform. Now, the development that anyone would be doing, any configurations, any changes anyone would be doing on Power Platform, anyone doing that on CRM and anyone doing the platform, you would not see a difference. The CRM app is now as if it's a solution on top of Power Platform. And similarly, there is a lot of elements from finance operations, the enterprise grade ERP, also being shifted on this one. And they call it the One Dynamics push. There's the vision to have all the Dynamics ERPs and CRM to be seamlessly integrated on having the same data platform and the same connections, same connectivities. Even the approvals would move on to this side. So Microsoft is investing very heavily on this, and you have the support and the confidence of the entire Microsoft ecosystem being run on this. So while I can't tell you how much investment other competitors are doing in this, Microsoft does have this as a key revenue line in their P&Ls. How is the security and data protection handled with the integration of Azure Cloud and the client physical environment? So as I said, there is a DLP in the admin side. There are data loss preventions, where you can specify what connectors you're allowing your users to connect to, what users not, and you can even limit them from within a connector, like what URLs with a particular connector can use or not use. And most of your Azure settings, any Azure security settings that you put in, would flow in place. All of this is at the end on top of various Azure components. Um, but we can have a slightly longer conversation because I didn't understand about the client physical environment, etc. So we can discuss all this in uh, another conversation if you connect with me later. We'll figure it out on what if you're seeing some specific challenges and how we can overcome that. Can we upload documents of client in the Microsoft platform in real estate companies for renewal of contract? Yes, you can. As I said, you have access to a database, a document store as well on top of the 1 GB standard record storage. But if you feel that that is too limited, or you're going to be using this, or you need to store these documents for compliance purposes for, let's say, 10 years or 15 years based on your regulatory compliance, you can even have it connect to SharePoint. So you can use Power Platform or Power Apps as a medium to get the data, to ingest the document from wherever, and then have it pushed into SharePoint. Or you store it in Dataverse temporarily for a few months. And once you need to archive it, at that point, you can have a running scheduled flow, which is going to push all these documents into SharePoint as archival storage if you want. Again, balancing out your costs, balancing out how you store data and your specific data policies. How does RAP help with discovering use cases for automating work processes in different departments? I'm assuming RAP is supposed to be RPA, which is robotic process automation. So that's the concept. You would robotic process automation comes into varieties. One is the cloud-based one, which is Power Automate, as I showed you. And the other use case, which I mostly talked about, is about the desktop automation. So if I elaborate a little on the use case that we built for the client, it was the same semi-government client that for whom we built the document request automation. And by the way, that document request automation, now we've made it live in about 8 different companies. 8 or 9, I think the ninth one is going live now. So for that client, what they had is they're a semi-government. They sell land in a part of Dubai, and they had customers who bought their land come in every few weeks or every few months asking for the utilities map. So each site, let's say plot that the customer has bought, the end customer has bought, they would have various utility lines, electricity lines, water lines, gas lines, etc. And some of these things are under development. So the government is actually paving those lines, or something that was submitted earlier, some changes have occurred or some breaks have occurred, so they have had to change these out. So every so often, the end customers would come in asking for updated maps. And their previous process was the customer would have to either call up or physically go to a cashier, and the cashier would take in that request for a token amount and then note that request, who is the customer, what is it that they want. And then same with the other process, they would have to, at the end of the week, they would kind of collect all this information from various customers. Let's say 10 different customers came in during that week. At the end of the week, the person would sit and find out this information. Now, the problem was all this information was available only in a GIS system, a geographic information system, a software that was built for legacy. It is only working on Windows XP, and it is only available for a particular laptop that they had in their office. They couldn't really migrate it to the cloud. They couldn't do anything with it, because even if they were to put the software, they will load it onto a VM or something of that sort. The software is still in there. It has no API connections, it has no data connections, anything of that sort. And this user would have to open up that, turn on that machine, log into that software, and then type in the geo coordinates and take screenshots of the particular utility lines and send them out. Now, obvious manual issues, that it would take a long time for the users to get their requests. Sometimes the requests will be missed. Sometimes, they asked for 2-3 things, they only got 2 things, or they got 1 thing, whatever. They asked for utility and gas lines, they only got the gas lines, they didn't get the electricity lines, etc. So there were mistakes that were happening occasionally, and the time delay. So one of the processes that we implemented for them was similar to how you saw for the build requests. We built a small table in Dataverse where the cashier would get the request. Whenever he would get the request on phone and email, wherever, he would just create a record in there. We had a list of customers, and for each customer, we had all the plots that they had bought and the the coordinates and the coordinate areas for those plots. So he would just select which site, which plot for this customer they are asking for in this request, and he would just save it. And once it saves, it would run the automation. Now, this automation would go, it would run the Power Automate, but then it would engage an element called Power Automate Desktop, which actually emulates a keyboard and mouse. So it would go and turn on that machine. So the machine would be in kind of sleep state or hibernate state. Whenever it receives a request from Power Automate Desktop, it can actually turn itself on as well. So it would turn on, log into this machine using the credentials, and because we had the geo coordinates, it would feed in those geo coordinates, and then the image would be constructed, and the various layers for the utilities and other lines were filtered out. Screenshots were taken, they were uploaded to SharePoint, and because all this data, like who requested it, is already there in as a record in Dataverse, we could figure out the email ID for the customer and directly email it out. Again, something that would take a week or maybe 5 days to execute took about 3 minutes. Actually, it took about 10 minutes if you went through this whole desktop automation. We could even get it down occasionally to 3 minutes, because anytime there is a change, we gave them a process whereby they could just schedule this internally. So all these screenshots for all the plots would get loaded onto SharePoint, and you can just refresh the screenshots anytime there's a change, maybe on a regular basis, once a week, once a month, they could just do it. So anytime a customer requests it, they don't have to go all the way down to the machine either. They could just query, the automation will just query in SharePoint. If it sees the data there, it sees the screenshots, send it out immediately. No need to wait. If the screenshots aren't there, or if they seem to be too outdated based on the dates, then it would go and do the machine automation as required. Okay. Samadhi and Tanya, I think we must be at time right now, so I don't want to exceed the time. If you guys have any other questions, let me know. And we can always, my contact information is what I will share immediately here. This is for Tanya, and any queries that you have, you can just pass on to my marketing manager, Tanya, and she can pass them down to me. I can get back. And any connections, please let me know. I will hand over the mic now back to Tanya and Samadhi.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ashim. Thank you everyone for joining and listening to us and sharing your queries with us. We hope that we have answered all your queries to the point. And if you have any more queries or you want to have a free demo, you can always contact me. You can see my contact details. You can send me an email or call me, and I'll loop you in with Mr. Ashay, and we can take it forward from there. We hope this webinar was informational and of interest to you. And thank you so much for taking out the time to attend this webinar and being with us. Have a great day. See you soon.